The morning sun painted the Indian Ocean in shades of gold as Chief Petty Officer Maria Santos wiped her hands on her apron and surveyed her kitchen domain aboard the USS Meridian. At 28 years old, Maria had spent 6 years perfecting her craft as the ship's head chef, turning military rations into meals that could boost morale even during the longest deployments. Her kitchen was her kingdom, and every pot, pan, and knife had its exact place. Maria came from a long line of cooks. Her grandmother had run a small restaurant in San Antonio, teaching Maria that food was more than sustenance. It was love, comfort, and sometimes the only thing that reminded people of home. When Maria joined the Navy at 22, fresh out of culinary school, many questioned why someone with her talents would choose military service over a prestigious restaurant career. The answer was simple. She wanted to serve her country while doing what she loved most. The USS Meridian was conducting anti-piracy operations in the Gulf of Aden, one of the world's most dangerous shipping lanes. Somali pirates have been increasingly aggressive, targeting commercial vessels with sophisticated tactics and modern weapons. The international coalition worked around the clock to protect merchant ships, but the pirates adapted quickly, always finding new ways to strike. Captain James Harrison valued Maria's contribution to ship morale more than most realized. A well-fed crew was an effective crew, and Maria's meals kept spirits high during tense patrols. Her breakfast burritos had become legendary throughout the fleet, and sailors from other ships would trade duty assignments just for a chance to eat her cooking during joint operations. That particular morning, Maria was preparing lunch for the crew of 200 when the ship's alarm system began its distinctive wail. General quarters meant everyone had specific battle stations, and Maria's training kicked in immediately. She secured all cooking equipment, turned off gas lines, and made sure her kitchen staff reached their emergency positions. Her own battle station was in the galley, where she would coordinate food service for extended operations and provide medical support if needed. The ship's intercom crackled to life with Captain Harrison's voice. A distress call had come from the merchant vessel Christina Marie, a cargo ship carrying humanitarian supplies to East Africa. The vessel reported engine problems and requested assistance, but intelligence suggested this might be a trap commonly used by pirate groups to lure military ships into ambush situations. Maria felt her heart rate increase as she listened to the tactical communications flowing through the ship. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, transforming from their daily routines into a combat-ready unit within minutes. She had participated in dozens of drills, but this felt different. The tension in the air was electric, and even veteran sailors showed signs of nervous energy. The USS Meridian approached the Christina Marie cautiously, with all defensive systems active and a helicopter conducting aerial reconnaissance. The merchant ship appeared to be genuinely disabled, listing slightly to starboard with visible smoke coming from its engine compartment. Captain Harrison decided to render assistance while maintaining maximum alertness for potential threats. As the ships drew closer, Maria watched through a porthole as the boarding team prepared to transfer to the Christina Marie. These operations required split-second timing and absolute trust between crew members. The ocean was relatively calm, but even small swells could make ship-to-ship transfers dangerous. She said a silent prayer for the boarding team's safety. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Mitchell led the boarding party, accompanied by 6 sailors, including medical personnel and engineering specialists. They would assess the merchant ship's condition and provide whatever assistance was necessary. The helicopter maintained overwatch, scanning the horizon for any suspicious vessels that might be approaching under cover of the larger ship. Maria returned to her duties, knowing that extended operations meant the crew would need regular meals regardless of the tactical situation. She began preparing sandwiches and thermoses of coffee that could be distributed quickly if the situation escalated. Her assistant cooks worked quietly, understanding that their job was to keep the crew fed and focused on their mission. The boarding team reached the Christina Marie without incident and began their assessment. Initial reports indicated genuine mechanical problems, with the main engine suffering from a cracked cylinder head that would require several hours to repair. The merchant ship's crew of 15 appeared cooperative and grateful for assistance, though they seemed nervous about the pirate activity in the area. Captain Harrison made the decision to provide engineering support while maintaining defensive posture. The USS Meridian's engineers could fabricate temporary repairs that would allow the Christina Marie to reach the nearest safe port. This type of humanitarian assistance was exactly why the International Anti-Piracy Coalition existed, protecting innocent civilians who were just trying to make an honest living in dangerous waters. Maria was delivering coffee to the bridge crew when the first alarm sounded. The helicopter pilot reported multiple small boats approaching rapidly from the southeast, their courses converging on both ships. The boats were moving at high speed and appear to be heavily loaded, suggesting they carried more personnel than would be normal for fishing or transportation purposes. The tactical situation changed instantly. Captain Harrison recalled the boarding party while bringing all weapons systems online. The approaching boats matched the profile of pirate attack craft, fast and maneuverable vessels designed to overwhelm larger ships through speed and numbers. The USS Meridian's advanced radar and communication systems allowed them to track multiple targets simultaneously, but the sheer number of approaching boats was concerning. Maria felt a chill run down her spine as she listened to the rapid communications between the bridge, weapons control, and the boarding team. The sailors on the Christina Marie were in immediate danger, trapped on a disabled ship with pirates approaching from multiple directions. Their extraction would be complicated by the need to provide covering fire while avoiding damage to the merchant vessel and its crew. The helicopter pilot's voice crackled over the intercom with an urgent update. The approaching boats carried visible weapons, including rocket-propelled grenades and automatic rifles. This was definitely a coordinated pirate attack, designed to overwhelm the naval escort and capture both vessels simultaneously. The pirates had waited until the military ship was committed to rendering assistance before revealing themselves. Lieutenant Commander Mitchell's voice came through clearly as she coordinated the boarding team's defensive preparations. They had taken positions around the Christina Marie's bridge and engine room, establishing fields of fire that would protect the merchant crew while covering their own extraction route. The situation required perfect timing and coordination between multiple units under extreme pressure. Maria watched the controlled chaos of combat preparation unfold around her. Sailors moved with purpose and precision, their months of training evident in every action. Weapons systems came online with mechanical precision, radar operators tracked incoming threats, and communications specialists coordinated with coalition partners who might provide additional support. The first shots came as the pirate boats reached effective range. Automatic weapons fire peppered the water around both ships as the attackers tested the defenders' responses. The USS Meridian's defensive systems engaged immediately, returning fire with calculated precision designed to disable the attacking craft without causing unnecessary casualties. Captain Harrison's tactical decisions were brilliant in their simplicity. Rather than trying to protect both ships simultaneously, he positioned the USS Meridian between the pirates and the Christina Marie, using his ship's superior firepower and armor to shield the merchant vessel. This allowed the boarding team to focus on protecting the civilian crew rather than fighting a defensive action against overwhelming numbers. The pirate coordination was impressive, suggesting experienced leadership and careful planning. They approached from multiple directions, forcing the naval vessel to divide its attention and firepower. Some boats attempted to board the Christina Marie directly, while others engaged the USS Meridian to prevent interference. This was clearly not a random attack by desperate criminals, but a military operation planned by professionals. Maria felt her training take over as the battle intensified. Her role during combat was to maintain food service capability and provide emergency medical support, but she found herself thinking about the tactical situation with clarity that surprised her. Years of military service had taught her to remain calm under pressure, and her kitchen experience had developed an ability to manage multiple complex tasks simultaneously. The sound of gunfire echoed across the water as the USS Meridian's crew fought to protect both ships. Maria could hear the helicopter pilot calling out target positions while the ship's weapons systems engaged multiple boats simultaneously. The merchant crew had taken shelter in their ship's most protected areas, while Lieutenant Commander Mitchell's team maintained defensive positions around critical areas. One of the pirate boats broke through the defensive fire and reached the Christina Marie's starboard side. Grappling hooks flew over the rail as armed men prepared to board the merchant vessel. This was the moment Maria had trained for, but hoped would never come. The pirates were about to turn her world into a nightmare, but they had no idea what kind of opponent they were about to face. The battle for the Christina Marie was about to begin, and Chief Petty Officer Maria Santos would soon discover that her skills extended far beyond cooking. The pirates thought they were attacking a helpless merchant ship protected by a single naval vessel. They were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous opponents come from the most unexpected places, and that a Navy chef could be just as deadly as any Marine when her people were threatened. The grappling hooks bit into the Christina Marie's deck rail with metallic clangs that cut through the sounds of battle. Maria watched from her position near a porthole as 3 pirates swung over the merchant ship's side, their AK-47 rifles gleaming in the afternoon sun. These weren't desperate fishermen turned to crime. They moved with military precision, wearing tactical vests and communicating through hand signals that spoke of professional training. Lieutenant Commander Mitchell's voice crackled over the radio as she repositioned her team to counter the boarding attempt. The 7 Navy personnel on the merchant ship were outnumbered but better trained, and they had the advantage of knowing the ship's layout. However, more pirate boats were approaching, and the situation was deteriorating rapidly. Captain Harrison faced an impossible decision. He could recall the boarding party immediately, but that would abandon the 15 civilian crew members to certain capture or worse. He could maintain support for the Christina Marie, but that would expose his own ship to increasing risk as more pirate boats joined the attack. The pirates had planned this perfectly, forcing the naval commander to choose between competing priorities. Maria felt a strange calm settle over her as she analyzed the tactical situation. Her position in the galley gave her access to multiple communication channels, and her years of coordinating complex meal service had developed an ability to track multiple simultaneous operations. She began to understand the pirate strategy and saw weaknesses in their approach that the bridge crew might not have noticed. The merchant ship's captain, David Rodriguez, had 30 years of experience in dangerous waters, but nothing had prepared him for this level of coordinated attack. His crew consisted mainly of Filipino and Indian sailors who had families depending on their income from these high-risk routes. They had followed all security protocols, traveling in convoy, and maintaining constant communication with naval forces, but the pirates had still found a way to strike. 3 more pirate boats reached the Christina Marie's port side, disgorging additional fighters who immediately began securing the deck areas. The boarding team found themselves surrounded, forced to establish defensive positions around the bridge and engine compartments. Their training emphasized protecting civilian lives above all else, but the tactical situation made that increasingly difficult. Maria made a decision that would change everything. Instead of remaining at her assigned battle station, she requested permission to join the helicopter extraction team as a medical specialist. Her emergency medical training qualified her for the role, and an additional medic could be crucial if the boarding team sustained casualties during extraction. Captain Harrison initially refused the request, but Maria's argument was compelling. The helicopter could only extract the boarding team in 2 trips due to weight limitations, and having a medic on the second trip could save lives if anyone was wounded during the first extraction. After 30 seconds of consideration, the captain granted permission, making Maria the first Navy chef to participate in a combat extraction in modern naval history. The helicopter pilot, Commander Lisa Park, was a 12-year veteran with experience in both Iraq and Afghanistan. She understood the risks of operating in contested airspace, but the extraction was necessary to save both military and civilian lives. The plan was to hover over the Christina Marie's deck while sailors fast roped down to secure the extraction zone, then lift the boarding team and as many civilians as possible. Maria strapped herself into the helicopter's crew compartment, her heart pounding as she checked her medical kit one final time. She had trained for this scenario dozens of times, but training never captured the real sounds, smells, and chaos of actual combat. The helicopter lifted off with a powerful roar, immediately banking toward the merchant ship where tracers from automatic weapons were crisscrossing the deck. The view from the air revealed the full scope of the pirate attack. 7 boats surrounded the 2 ships, with more approaching from the horizon. The USS Meridian's defensive fire had disabled 2 of the attacking craft, but the remaining boats continued their assault with determined aggression. Smoke rose from multiple impacts on both ships, and the water was littered with debris from the ongoing battle. Commander Park's voice was steady and professional as she coordinated with the ship's tactical center. The extraction would require precise timing and perfect communication between multiple units. The helicopter would have only seconds to hover over the deck before enemy fire became too intense, meaning every movement had to be planned and executed flawlessly. Maria watched as the helicopter descended toward the Christina Marie's deck, where Lieutenant Commander Mitchell's team had established a perimeter around the primary extraction point. The merchant crew huddled in the ship's superstructure while pirates advanced from multiple directions, using cargo containers and deck equipment for cover. The situation looked hopeless from the air, but Maria knew that Navy training and superior firepower could still turn the tide. The first extraction went perfectly, with 4 sailors and 6 civilians successfully lifted off the merchant ship before enemy fire forced the helicopter to withdraw. However, Lieutenant Commander Mitchell remained aboard with 2 sailors and 9 civilians, including several wounded crew members who couldn't be moved immediately. The second extraction would be far more dangerous, as the pirates had observed the first operation and positioned themselves to counter the helicopter's return. Maria felt her training take complete control as they prepared for the second approach. Her medical kit contained enough supplies to stabilize serious trauma injuries, and her years of working under pressure in ship's galleys had developed hand steadiness that would be crucial for emergency treatment. She was no longer just a chef participating in a military operation. She was a Navy petty officer doing her job under enemy fire. The helicopter's approach to the Christina Marie was met with intense ground fire from multiple positions. Commander Park's evasive maneuvers kept them alive, but the extraction zone was now heavily contested. Pirates had positioned themselves in elevated positions around the deck, creating crossfires that made a conventional landing impossible. The mission parameters had changed, and new tactics would be required. Lieutenant Commander Mitchell's radio communication was calm, but urgent. 3 civilians were seriously wounded and needed immediate medical attention, but moving them to the extraction point would expose them to enemy fire. The boarding team was running low on ammunition, and their defensive perimeter was shrinking under constant pressure from increasing numbers of attackers. Maria made a decision that violated every protocol, but might save lives. She requested permission to fast rope down to the ship independently, using her medical training to stabilize the wounded civilians for extraction while the helicopter provided covering fire from above. The plan was dangerous beyond calculation, but it might be the only way to save innocent lives. Commander Park understood the risks, but approved the plan after consulting with Captain Harrison. Maria would rappel down to the merchant ship, provide emergency medical treatment to the wounded, and help coordinate the final extraction while the helicopter maintained overwatch. If successful, they could extract all remaining personnel in a single lift. If unsuccessful, Maria would be trapped on a ship being overrun by pirates. The fast rope descent was unlike anything Maria had experienced in training. Automatic weapons fire snapped past her head as she slid down the rope toward the Christina Marie's deck, her medical kit secured across her back, and adrenaline coursing through her system. She could see Lieutenant Commander Mitchell's position near the bridge structure, where two sailors were providing covering fire for the wounded civilians. Maria hit the deck and immediately sprinted toward the casualty collection point, her movements guided by muscle memory from countless hours of emergency response training. The wounded civilians included the ship's engineer, who had suffered a gunshot wound to the leg, and two crew members who had been injured by flying debris when the pirates first boarded. Their wounds were serious, but treatable if she could stabilize them quickly. Working under fire, Maria applied pressure bandages and started four fluids while Lieutenant Commander Mitchell coordinated defensive fire to keep the pirates at bay. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, years of precise knife work, and recipe timing translated into medical procedures performed under extreme stress. She was discovering capabilities she never knew she possessed. The pirates' assault intensified as they realized the extraction was in progress. Rocket-propelled grenades exploded against the ship's superstructure while automatic weapons raked the deck areas. Maria continued working on the wounded, her focus narrowed to the medical procedures that could mean the difference between life and death for innocent civilians caught in this nightmare. Commander Park's helicopter circled overhead like an angry wasp, its door gunners providing suppressive fire that kept the pirate from advancing on the extraction point. The coordination between air and ground elements was textbook perfect, but ammunition was running low and fuel consumption was becoming a critical factor. The extraction had to happen soon, or everyone would be trapped. Maria finished stabilizing the wounded and helped move them to the extraction point as Lieutenant Commander Mitchell's team provided covering fire. The helicopter descended through intense ground fire, its crew chief lowering extraction harnesses while door gunners engaged visible targets around the deck. This was the most dangerous moment of the entire operation, when everyone was exposed and vulnerable. The extraction proceeded rapidly, but under constant fire. Maria helped load the wounded civilians first, then assisted the remaining merchant crew members while the helicopter crew chief coordinated the complex operation. Lieutenant Commander Mitchell and her two sailors maintained defensive positions until the civilians were secure, then moved to the extraction point themselves. As the helicopter lifted off with all personnel aboard, Maria looked down at the Christina Marie being overrun by pirates who had been denied their primary objectives. The merchant ship would be lost, but every human life had been saved through coordinated action and individual courage. The pirates had expected easy targets and found professional resistance that cost them dearly. The flight back to the USS Meridian was a blur of medical procedures and tactical debriefing. Maria worked to stabilize the wounded while listening to the helicopter crew coordinate with the ship's medical team for incoming casualties. She was discovering that her skills extended far beyond cooking, and that Navy training had prepared her for challenges she never imagined facing. Captain Harrison met the helicopter personally as it landed on the USS Meridian's flight deck. The extraction had been successful against overwhelming odds, and every civilian and military life had been saved through exceptional teamwork and individual heroism. Maria's decision to join the extraction team had been instrumental in the mission's success, but her real test was still to come. The pirates who had attacked the Christina Marie were now regrouping for a second assault, this time targeting the USS Meridian directly. They had seen their carefully planned operation disrupted by unexpected resistance, and their leadership was demanding revenge against the naval vessel that had cost them their prize. The battle was far from over, and Chief Petty Officer Maria Santos was about to discover that her greatest challenges lay ahead. The USS Meridian's medical bay buzzed with controlled urgency as Maria helped transfer the wounded civilians from the helicopter to treatment areas. Her hands were steady as she assisted the ship's medical team, translating her emergency field treatment into proper documentation for continued care. The merchant ship's engineer would recover fully from his gunshot wound, and the other injured crew members were stable thanks to her quick intervention under fire. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the ship's chief medical officer, was impressed by Maria's field medicine capabilities. The pressure bandages had been applied with textbook precision, and the 4 lines were placed better than many hospital corpsmen could manage in emergency situations. She made a mental note to recommend Maria for advanced medical training when they returned to port. Captain Harrison called an immediate tactical briefing as reports came in from the helicopter crew and rescued personnel. The pirate attack had been more sophisticated than typical operations in the region, suggesting coordination by experienced military professionals rather than opportunistic criminals. Intelligence indicated that this particular group had been responsible for several recent attacks on international shipping, always escaping before naval forces could respond effectively. The rescued merchant crew provided crucial information about the pirates' methods and equipment. Captain Rodriguez described how the attackers had used sophisticated communication equipment and displayed knowledge of naval procedures that suggested inside information about shipping schedules and convoy operations. The pirates weren't just criminals. They were part of a larger organization with access to intelligence and military-grade equipment. Maria sat in the briefing room, still wearing her blood-stained medical gear, as the intelligence picture became clearer. The pirate organization operated from hidden bases along the Somali coast, using a network of informants to identify valuable targets and plan coordinated attacks. Their success rate was unusually high because they chose their targets carefully and struck with overwhelming force when naval escorts were minimal or distracted. Lieutenant Commander Mitchell's after-action report painted a picture of professional military opposition that exceeded expectations. The pirates who boarded the Christina Marie moved with tactical discipline and used advanced weapons effectively. Their communication procedures and coordinated assault patterns indicated training that went far beyond typical criminal organizations operating in a region. The tactical situation was evolving rapidly as more intelligence reports arrived from coalition partners. Satellite imagery showed additional pirate boats leaving hidden coves along the coast, converging on the USS Meridian's position in what appeared to be a coordinated response to the failed attack on the Christina Marie. The pirates were escalating their operations, treating the naval vessel's interference as a direct challenge to their authority. Captain Harrison faced a complex decision matrix as he analyzed the developing threat picture. His primary mission was protecting commercial shipping in the assigned patrol area, but the pirate organization was clearly planning a major operation that could threaten multiple vessels simultaneously. He could withdraw to safer waters and call for reinforcements or maintain position and engage the pirates with his current resources. Maria found herself thinking about the tactical problem from an unexpected perspective. Her years of managing complex kitchen operations had developed an intuitive understanding of resource allocation and timing that applied surprisingly well to military planning. She began to see patterns in the pirates' behavior that reminded her of coordinating multiple cooking processes simultaneously. Everything had to come together at exactly the right moment for maximum effect. The ship's radar operators reported multiple contacts approaching from different directions, confirming the intelligence assessments about a coordinated pirate response. The attackers were using the same tactics that had nearly succeeded against the Christina Marie, approaching from multiple directions to overwhelm the naval vessel's defensive capabilities. However, the USS Meridian was far better equipped and more heavily armed than a merchant ship. Dr. Walsh asked Maria to remain in the medical bay as they prepared for possible casualties from the approaching engagement. Her demonstrated capabilities under fire made her valuable as additional medical support, and her calm demeanor could be crucial if the situation became chaotic. Maria accepted the assignment gladly, understanding that every crew member had multiple roles during combat operations. The first radar contact closed to within visual range 90 minutes after the Christina Marie extraction. Three high-speed boats approached from the northeast, their profiles matching known pirate craft used in previous attacks. The USS Meridian's weapons systems tracked them automatically, while the helicopter prepared for possible anti-surface warfare missions against multiple small targets. Captain Harrison's tactical communications were crisp and professional as he coordinated defensive preparations. The ship's advanced radar and fire control systems could engage multiple targets simultaneously, but the number of approaching contacts suggested that the pirates were planning something beyond a conventional attack. Intelligence reports indicated possible suicide boat operations, where explosive-laden craft would attempt to ram the naval vessel. Maria monitored the tactical situation from a medical bay while preparing treatment areas for potential casualties. The pirates' willingness to escalate against a heavily armed naval vessel suggested desperation or fanaticism that could make them extremely dangerous opponents. She checked her emergency medical supplies one final time and reviewed trauma treatment procedures that might be needed if the ship sustained significant damage. The engagement began when the lead pirate boat opened fire at maximum range, testing the naval vessel's defensive responses. The USS Meridian's return fire was immediate and devastating, disabling the attacking craft with precision-guided rounds that neutralized the threat without unnecessary destruction. However, two more boats continued their approach, while additional contacts appeared on radar from other directions. The helicopter pilot's voice reported multiple rocket-propelled grenades being fired from the remaining boats, their trajectories aimed at the ship's superstructure and flight deck. The vessel's defensive systems engaged automatically, using close-in weapon systems to destroy the incoming projectiles before they could impact. The technology demonstration was impressive, but Maria understood that sustained attacks could eventually overwhelm even advanced defensive systems. Captain Harrison maneuvered the USS Meridian to maintain optimal firing positions while avoiding the pirates' attempts to coordinate attacks from multiple directions. The ship's speed and maneuverability advantages were significant, but the attackers' numbers and persistence suggested they were committed to this engagement regardless of casualties. The tactical situation was becoming a battle of attrition rather than a quick defensive action. Maria watched the medical team prepare for mass casualty procedures while listening to the tactical communications flow through the ship's intercom system. The engagement was intensifying as more pirate boats joined the attack, some apparently attempting to ram the naval vessel, while others provided covering fire. The coordination required to manage such a complex operation spoke to sophisticated leadership and extensive planning. The ship shuddered as an RPG round impacted near the waterline, causing minor damage but no casualties. Maria felt her medical training take complete control as she prepared for possible wounded personnel, her movements automatic and efficient despite the stress of combat. She was discovering reserves of calm and competence that surprised her, as if years of managing kitchen emergencies had prepared her for this ultimate test. Dr. Walsh coordinated with damage control teams, while Maria prepared trauma treatment areas according to established protocols. The ship's medical facilities were designed to handle combat casualties, but the possibility of multiple simultaneous attacks meant they needed to be ready for scenarios that exceeded normal planning parameters. Every medical team member had specific responsibilities that had been drilled countless times in peacetime exercises. The tactical picture continued evolving as intelligence reports identified the pirates' apparent strategy. Rather than attempting to board the naval vessel directly, they were trying to disable critical systems through sustained attacks that would leave the ship vulnerable to larger follow-on forces. Satellite imagery showed additional boats departing from coastal bases, suggesting that this was only the beginning of a much larger operation. Captain Harrison's decision to maintain position and engage the pirates directly was tactically sound but strategically risky. The USS Meridian could handle the current level of attack, but resources were finite, and the pirates seemed willing to accept significant casualties to achieve their objectives. The engagement was becoming a test of resolve as much as military capability. Maria found herself thinking about the civilians they had rescued from the Christina Marie, now safe in the ship's protected areas, but aware that their rescue had triggered this larger conflict. The merchant crew members were experienced sailors who understood the risks of their profession, but being caught in a naval engagement was beyond their normal experience. She made rounds to check on their welfare, while maintaining readiness for potential medical emergencies. The helicopter returned from a reconnaissance mission with alarming intelligence about the scope of the pirate organization's response. More than 20 boats were now converging on the USS Meridian's position, representing the largest coordinated pirate attack in the region's history. The attackers included boats carrying heavy weapons and possible explosive devices, suggesting they were prepared for a prolonged engagement against modern naval forces. Lieutenant Commander Mitchell coordinated the ship's defensive preparations, while Captain Harrison communicated with coalition headquarters about the developing situation. Reinforcements were available, but hours away, meaning the USS Meridian would face the bulk of the pirate assault with current resources. The engagement was becoming a defining moment for anti-piracy operations in the region. Maria checked her equipment one final time as the ship prepared for the largest phase of the battle. Her medical supplies were organized for maximum efficiency, and she had reviewed treatment protocols for the types of injuries most likely in naval combat. She was no longer thinking of herself as a chef who happened to be in a combat situation. She was a Navy petty officer preparing to save lives under the most extreme circumstances imaginable. The radar screens showed the full scope of the approaching threat as dozens of contacts converged from multiple directions. The pirates had committed everything to this attack, apparently viewing the USS Meridian's interference as an existential threat to their operations. The naval crew prepared to face odds that would test every aspect of their training and equipment. Captain Harrison's final preparations included positioning the ship for optimal defensive fire while maintaining communication with potential reinforcements. The engagement would be won or lost in the next few hours, and every crew member understood that their individual performance could determine the outcome. Maria Santos, chief petty officer and ship's chef, was about to discover that her greatest contributions to the battle were still ahead of her. The battle erupted with sudden violence as 23 pirate boats attacked the USS Meridian from 6 different directions simultaneously. Maria felt the ship's massive defensive weapons systems come to life, their thunderous reports shaking the medical bay as high explosive rounds reached out to destroy incoming threats. Through the porthole, she could see tracers crisscrossing the darkening sky like deadly fireworks, while the helicopter circled overhead, engaging targets with precision-guided missiles. The first casualties arrived within minutes of the engagement start. 2 sailors from a forward gun mount suffered shrapnel wounds when an RPG round detonated against nearby armor plating. Maria worked alongside Dr. Walsh to stabilize the wounded men, her hands steady despite the ship's violent maneuvering as Captain Harrison positioned the vessel to avoid coordinated attacks from multiple directions. The pirates' tactics were more sophisticated than anyone had anticipated. Instead of the usual chaotic assault, they executed coordinated maneuvers that suggested professional military training. Some boats attacked directly to fix the naval vessel's attention, while others attempted flanking movements designed to exploit blind spots in the ship's defensive coverage. The operation showed planning and coordination that exceeded typical criminal organizations. Maria could hear the tactical communications flowing through the ship's intercom as weapons control coordinated defensive fires against multiple simultaneous threats. The USS Meridian's advanced systems allowed engagement of numerous targets concurrently, but the sheer number of attackers was straining the crew's ability to maintain effective defensive coverage. Several pirate boats had already penetrated the outer defensive perimeter. Dr. Walsh called for additional medical personnel as reports came in of potential mass casualties from a coordinated suicide boat attack planned by the pirates. Intelligence intercepts suggested that explosive-laden vessels were approaching from the southeast, their crews apparently willing to die if they could disable or sink the naval vessel. The medical team prepared for scenarios that could overwhelm their treatment capacity. The ship's damage control teams reported minor flooding in 2 compartments after near-miss explosions damaged hull plating below the waterline. The USS Meridian's sophisticated damage control systems contained the flooding automatically, but sustained attacks could eventually cause critical damage that would compromise the vessel's combat effectiveness. Captain Harrison balanced aggressive offensive action against the need to preserve his ship's defensive capabilities. Maria found herself coordinating medical response activities with an efficiency that surprised everyone, including herself. Her years of managing complex kitchen operations translated perfectly to medical logistics as she tracked supplies, personnel, and treatment priorities with the same systematic approach she used for meal service during busy periods. Dr. Walsh began delegating increasing responsibility to her as the pace of operations intensified. The helicopter pilot reported that several pirate boats were carrying what appeared to be shoulder-fired surface-to-air missiles, weapons that could threaten the aircraft, providing crucial reconnaissance and fire support. Commander Park was forced to modify her tactics, operating at higher altitudes that reduced effectiveness but improved survival chances. The pirates had clearly planned for aerial opposition and brought appropriate countermeasures. 3 more pirate boats broke through the defensive perimeter and reached close range before being destroyed by the ship's close-in weapon systems. The attackers had accepted massive casualties to achieve tactical positions that allowed them to engage the naval vessel with small arms and rocket-propelled grenades. Their determination suggested fanatical leadership or significant financial incentives that made death preferable to failure. Maria treated a steady stream of casualties as the engagement continued, her medical skills improving with each patient under the pressure of combat conditions. She discovered an intuitive understanding of trauma medicine that complemented her formal training, as if her years of working with sharp knives and hot surfaces had prepared her for the realities of treating combat injuries. Her calm demeanor under stress became a stabilizing influence on other medical personnel. The tactical situation evolved as intelligence reports revealed the true scope of the pirate organization's capabilities. Satellite imagery showed additional boats departing from hidden bases along the coast, suggesting that this attack represented only a portion of their available forces. The USS Meridian was facing not just a criminal organization, but a military force with significant resources and professional leadership. Captain Harrison's tactical decisions were brilliant in their simplicity and execution. Rather than trying to engage all threats simultaneously, he concentrated firepower on the most dangerous attackers while using maneuver to avoid mass coordinated strikes. The ship's superior speed and weapons systems allowed him to engage pirate boats individually rather than facing the full force of their coordinated attack. The engagement reached a critical moment when 5 explosive-laden boats approached in a coordinated suicide attack designed to overwhelm the ship's defensive systems through simultaneous detonation. The USS Meridian's weapons crews engaged all 5 targets with everything available, destroying 4 boats at safe distances, but allowing 1 craft to approach within dangerous range before being neutralized. The explosion from the destroyed suicide boat caused significant damage to the ship's forward sections, killing 2 sailors and wounding 12 others in the most serious casualties of the engagement. Maria found herself leading the medical response as Dr. Walsh coordinated with damage control teams to assess the full extent of injuries and structural damage. The blast had tested everyone's resolve and training under the most extreme conditions. Working in the damaged forward sections, Maria treated casualties while wearing breathing apparatus due to smoke and toxic fumes from the explosion. Her movements were automatic and precise as she applied combat lifesaver techniques that meant the difference between life and death for seriously injured sailors. She was discovering capabilities she never knew she possessed, as if the extreme situation had unlocked hidden reserves of skill and courage. The pirate attack began to falter as their casualties mounted, and coordination broke down under sustained defensive fire. The USS Meridian's advanced weapons systems had destroyed or disabled more than half the attacking boats, while the survivors were running low on ammunition and fuel for their high-speed approach tactics. However, intelligence reports indicated that larger reinforcements were still approaching from multiple coastal bases. Captain Harrison made the tactical decision to transition from defensive to offensive operations, using his ship's superior capabilities to hunt down the remaining attackers before they could regroup or escape to threaten other vessels. The USS Meridian began aggressive maneuvering to engage individual pirate boats with overwhelming firepower while maintaining defensive readiness for possible additional attacks. Maria coordinated medical treatment for 14 wounded sailors while monitoring tactical communications about the ongoing engagement. Her organizational skills proved invaluable as she tracked patient status, supply consumption, and personnel assignments with the same attention to detail she brought to managing meal service for 200 crew members. Dr. Walsh relied on her increasingly as the medical team's informal chief of operations. The helicopter pilot reported that several damaged pirate boats were attempting to escape toward territorial waters where they would be protected from pursuit by international law. Captain Harrison faced the difficult decision of whether to pursue the fleeing attackers or maintain position to protect shipping in his assigned patrol area. The tactical situation was complicated by political considerations that could affect the broader anti-piracy mission. Lieutenant Commander Mitchell led a damage assessment team through the ship's affected areas, while Maria continued treating casualties in the medical bay. The explosion damage was significant, but not critical, with repair crews already working to restore full combat capability within hours. The USS Meridian's sophisticated damage control systems had prevented what could have been catastrophic flooding or fire damage. The final phase of the engagement saw the USS Meridian hunting down the last few pirate boats that remained combat effective. The naval vessel's superior speed and firepower made the outcome inevitable, but the pirates fought with desperate courage that cost additional lives on both sides. By sunset, the largest pirate attack in the region's history had been decisively defeated through superior training, equipment, and individual heroism. Maria worked through the night, treating wounded sailors while the ship's repair teams restored combat systems damaged during the engagement. Her medical skills had been tested under the most extreme conditions imaginable, and she had proven capable of performance that exceeded all expectations. She was no longer just a chef who happened to be in combat. She was a Navy petty officer who had contributed significantly to a major military victory. The tactical debriefing revealed the full scope of what they had accomplished. The USS Meridian had faced odds of more than 10-1 and achieved complete victory while protecting civilian lives and maintaining operational capability. The engagement would become a case study in naval tactics and individual performance under extreme pressure, with Maria Santos featuring prominently in the official record of events. However, the celebration was premature. Intelligence reports indicated that the defeated pirate organization was part of a larger network that included land-based facilities and political connections extending throughout the region. The USS Meridian's victory had disrupted their operations, but not eliminated the threat, and retaliation was considered highly likely. The real test of Maria's courage and capabilities was still to come. As dawn broke over the Indian Ocean, the USS Meridian continued its patrol with a crew that had been tested in combat and proven themselves capable of extraordinary performance. Maria Santos had discovered that her skills extended far beyond cooking, and that Navy training had prepared her for challenges she never imagined facing. The pirates who thought they were attacking a conventional naval vessel had encountered something unexpected, a ship's chef who became a nightmare for anyone who threatened her crew and her mission. 3 weeks after the massive sea battle, the USS Meridian received intelligence that changed everything. The pirate organization they had defeated was planning one final revenge attack, but this time they intended to strike at the ship's home port when it returned for resupply and crew rotation. Maria Santos found herself at the center of a complex counterintelligence operation that would test every skill she had developed during her transformation from chef to combat medic. The intelligence came from captured pirates who had been interrogated by coalition forces after the sea engagement. Under pressure, they revealed that their organization had infiltrators in several major ports, including personnel who could provide detailed information about ship movements and security procedures. The USS Meridian's scheduled return to Djibouti would be the perfect opportunity for a coordinated terrorist attack that could kill hundreds of sailors and civilians. Captain Harrison faced an impossible choice between operational security and crew welfare. His sailors had been at sea for 6 months and desperately needed shore leave, medical care, and resupply operations that could only be conducted in port. However, bringing the ship into Djibouti harbor knowing that terrorists were planning an attack would expose everyone to unacceptable risk. The situation required innovative thinking and careful coordination with intelligence agencies. Maria volunteered for the most dangerous part of the counter-operation. Using her medical credentials and previous emergency response training, she would go ashore ahead of the ship's arrival to identify and neutralize the terrorist infiltrators before they could execute their attack plan. The mission required her to work undercover in civilian hospitals and port facilities, gathering intelligence while maintaining her cover as a routine medical liaison. The plan was incredibly risky because it required Maria to operate alone in a hostile environment where her military background could make her a target if discovered. However, her medical skills provided perfect cover for accessing the facilities where terrorists were most likely to be positioned. Dr. Walsh trained her in advanced intelligence gathering techniques while maintaining her medical officer credentials for the mission. Maria's cover story was simple but effective. She was a Navy medical specialist conducting routine liaison visits with civilian medical facilities to coordinate emergency response procedures for naval vessels entering port. This would allow her access to hospitals, clinics, and Port Authority medical stations where terrorists might be positioned to observe ship movements and plan their attacks. The helicopter insertion was conducted at night, 20 miles from Djibouti, where Maria transferred to a civilian medical transport that would bring her into the city through normal channels. Her equipment included sophisticated communication gear hidden in medical supplies, allowing her to maintain contact with the USS Meridian while appearing to conduct routine administrative duties. Djibouti's port facilities were a complex maze of commercial shipping, military installations, and civilian infrastructure that provided countless opportunities for terrorist infiltration and attack planning. Maria's reconnaissance revealed security vulnerabilities that could allow small groups of attackers to access critical areas with minimal detection. The intelligence reports had been accurate about the scope of the threat. Working through legitimate medical channels, Maria began identifying personnel who had access to sensitive information about naval operations. Her medical background allowed her to ask detailed questions about emergency response procedures, personnel assignments, and facility layouts without arousing suspicion. She discovered that several key positions had been filled recently by individuals whose backgrounds hadn't been properly verified. The first breakthrough came when Maria noticed unusual communication patterns among certain Port Authority medical staff. Using equipment provided by naval intelligence, she intercepted conversations that revealed detailed knowledge of the USS Meridian's planned arrival schedule and crew manifest. The terrorist infiltrators were more deeply embedded than anyone had suspected, with access to classified information that could only come from high-level sources. Captain Harrison received Maria's intelligence reports with growing concern about the scope of the terrorist network. The attackers had planned their operation with military precision, positioning assets throughout the port complex to coordinate simultaneous attacks when the USS Meridian arrived. Standard security procedures would be insufficient to counter such a sophisticated threat. Maria's second discovery was even more alarming. The terrorists had acquired detailed blueprints of the ship's internal layout, including information about critical systems and crew quarters that would allow them to maximize casualties if they successfully boarded the vessel. Someone with authorized access was providing intelligence that went far beyond what port infiltrators could gather through observation. Working with local law enforcement officials who had been secretly vetted by intelligence agencies, Maria began a complex operation to identify and neutralize the terrorist network without alerting them to the counterintelligence effort. This required careful coordination between multiple agencies while maintaining her cover as a routine medical liaison officer. The investigation revealed that the terrorist organization had been planning this operation for months, using the earlier sea engagement as an opportunity to study the USS Meridian's capabilities and crew procedures. They had identified Maria's role in the battle and specifically planned to target medical facilities where she might be treated if wounded, showing a level of tactical intelligence that was genuinely frightening. Maria's medical skills became crucial when she discovered that the terrorists planned to use a coordinated poison attack against multiple naval personnel during routine medical examinations. Working in civilian facilities, she identified the specific toxins involved and developed countermeasures that could be administered secretly to protect potential victims without alerting the attackers to their discovery. The final phase of the operation required Maria to maintain her cover while coordinating with a joint task force that included special operations personnel from multiple countries. Her position as a medical liaison allowed her to provide real-time intelligence about terrorist movements and preparations without compromising the counter-operation. She had become a crucial asset in preventing what could have been the largest terrorist attack against naval forces in the region's history. Captain Harrison made the decision to proceed with the USS Meridian's port visit, but with comprehensive countermeasures based on Maria's intelligence. The ship would arrive on schedule, but with enhanced security procedures and coordinated support from special operations teams positioned throughout the port complex. The terrorists would find their planned targets defended by overwhelming force. The terrorist attack began exactly as intelligence had predicted, with coordinated assaults on multiple targets throughout the port complex. However, Maria's reconnaissance had allowed counterterrorism forces to position themselves perfectly, neutralizing each attack group before they could cause significant damage. Her medical training had evolved into intelligence-gathering capabilities that saved countless lives. During the final engagement, Maria found herself treating wounded civilians and security personnel while coordinating tactical communications between multiple law enforcement agencies. Her unique combination of medical skills and combat experience made her invaluable for managing the complex emergency response required by simultaneous terrorist attacks at multiple locations. The operation was completely successful, with the entire terrorist network neutralized and their planned attack prevented without any civilian casualties. Maria's intelligence gathering and medical skills have been instrumental in achieving this outcome, proving that Navy training could prepare personnel for challenges that extended far beyond their original specialties. Captain Harrison's after-action report highlighted Maria's extraordinary performance throughout the extended operation, from the initial rescue of the Christina Marie through the major sea battle and, finally, the counter-terrorism mission in Djibouti. Her transformation from ship's chef to combat medic and intelligence operative represented one of the most remarkable individual achievements in modern naval history. The USS Meridian completed its resupply and crew rotation without further incident, but Maria Santos had been permanently changed by her experiences. She was no longer just a chef who happened to be in combat situations. She was a proven warrior who had discovered capabilities she never knew she possessed. Her skills extended far beyond cooking, and she had become a nightmare for anyone who threatened her ship, her crew, or innocent civilians. Dr. Walsh recommended Maria for accelerated promotion and specialized training that would formalize her medical capabilities while maintaining her culinary duties. The Navy had discovered that exceptional individuals could excel in multiple roles simultaneously, and Maria's unique combination of skills made her invaluable for future operations requiring both medical support and innovative problem-solving. The rescued crew of the Christina Marie sent letters thanking Maria personally for her role in their survival, while the families of wounded USS Meridian sailors credited her medical skills with saving their loved ones' lives. Her reputation spread throughout the fleet as an example of how ordinary sailors could achieve extraordinary things when tested under extreme conditions. Maria returned to her galley duties with new perspective and confidence that would influence everything she did for the rest of her naval career. She had learned that cooking and combat medicine required many of the same skills: precision under pressure, attention to detail, and the ability to manage multiple complex tasks simultaneously. Her kitchen would always be her primary domain, but she now knew that her capabilities extended far beyond feeding the crew. The pirates who had thought they were attacking a routine naval patrol had encountered something they never expected: a ship's chef who became their worst nightmare when they threatened innocent people. Maria Santos had proven that heroism comes in many forms, and that the most dangerous opponents are often those who appear least threatening until circumstances reveal their true capabilities and determination. Years later, when naval historians studied the engagement, they would identify Chief Petty Officer Maria Santos as a perfect example of how individual excellence and adaptability could determine the outcome of complex military operations. She had started as just the ship's chef, but when pirates boarded that merchant vessel, she turned into their nightmare and showed the world what Navy training could accomplish when combined with personal courage and determination to protect others.